Well, hello everybody. This is Chris Dew with E1, and I want to welcome you to our session on PopDock and focused on integrating Dynamics GP using PopDock. One of the things, I'll just cover a couple little slides to get started on this, but PopDock is a tool, if you aren't familiar with it, that allows us to report not only on just GP data in this example, but we can report off of data coming from a multitude of sources. We can access that data wherever we want it. And so we'll talk about a couple different ways we can see that inside of GP and outside of GP. And again, making this available across multiple devices, not only inside of an application on your computer, but maybe on your mobile phone or your tablet, things like that. So 5 kind of key pillars that we'll talk about today. We're going to talk about embedded or actionable widgets. And so this allows us to see data in whatever application that we are working in without necessarily having to leave our favorite application. So in this case, it might be Dynamics GP, but if you had other people that lived in a CRM system and did most of their work in there all day, or maybe it's some e-commerce system, we can basically make the data that we need available to everyone. This gives us one interface for reporting. So we might be used to, again, in the GP world, we might be used to seeing smart lists. I'll call it smart lists for now. So we might have our smart list and we might know how to filter the data and things like that. But guess what? What happens when we look outside of our GP data? And so now we maybe need to pull something from a help desk system, or like I said, an e-commerce system, or maybe a CRM system, something like that. Well, each of those different systems might have a very different way of getting at the data and how they filter it, and how many records we can return and stuff like that. And so you'll see that PopDock gives us a unified interface for accessing it no matter what it is. We can also combine data from those different applications. This is what's really cool, is that we can now give one meaningful report that might contain data from multiple systems. It's also real time. So you probably have heard the term BI, business intelligence, has been bandied about a lot in the recent years. But a lot of those things rely on a data warehouse and aren't necessarily pulling the data real time. I still think this is key for people that need access to this data to do their jobs every day. This isn't maybe necessarily in-depth analysis, of things. This is people saying, here are the 10 things on my list to do today. Here's some exceptions. Here's something that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, we're not going to have a good day at our work. So this is real-time access to the data that you need. And then one really cool thing is sometimes you don't even want to be logged into any system. I just want, maybe it's an email or maybe it's a notification on my phone that says, hey, I got an exception. Means maybe I'm low in this type of inventory, or maybe there's a problem with this customer account or something like that. Well, I can get that automatically emailed to me and set that to run on a schedule, so I don't even have to log into any systems. You'll see we can connect to all kinds of data from a bunch of different places. So I won't go into that right now, but I just want to make you aware that we can connect to pretty much anything that has, an API or a SQL server connection or ODBC, those kinds of things. We talked about this a little bit before, but we can give this interface to people wherever they want. So again, if you're working inside of GP, it might be in that desktop application. But we can also make it available via a tablet or a mobile device, or even if Excel. If you do a lot of your day inside of Excel, we can make any of this data available to you right from that interface. We've talked about widgets just a little bit. I'm going to show you a couple examples. This one is showing some ERP data inside of a certain CRM system, and we can make it visual if you want, right? If we just want a couple of different charts, or maybe the big number that says, here's maybe today's invoices or something like that. So we can make all these different types of data. These are PopDock widgets. Here's another ERP system. I can make this a little bit more like the smart lists that we might be used to today. And so this is this gives me the capability of publishing whatever lists I want inside of here. And again, this happens to be in a different ERP system that we can access that data without even leaving the system. Okay, so let's jump in. I want to show you just a bit more how this works in a living, breathing way. So here is the main interface for POPDOCK. And if we go inside of here, I could pull up, for example, my GP sales transactions. So this is pulling live data. It's pulling all of my transactions inside of here. It's just pulling the first 100 in this example, but I could, pull the first 10,000 if I wanted. A couple things to point out as it's getting that fresh data, as it's pulling, all the records, is that this works across companies too. So right now I'm pulling them from Fabricam, but I could say, hey, also pull from this company and this company. And so it's very easy to change companies for GP and pull from other ones. But other things in the interface, right, is if we wanted to, I can remove fields, right? This customer PO number, looks like most of these don't have it on there. So maybe if that doesn't make sense for my report, I can remove that. So now I have, a little cleaner list. I can also add columns, right? If it makes sense, I want to know how much they have on their account. I can quickly add any fields that I want, or if I wanted to add the aging periods, I can add all those types of things. So you can see it's very quick and easy to add those fields. I can move them around, right? If the most important thing in here is maybe not the SOP type, maybe it's the document date, maybe that's the very first thing I care about, or the customer. I can move these around, right? It's simple as dragging and dropping, and now I have a different order for this. If I want to save this, right, I can just create a favorite very quickly. And now I have a favorite that I can go back to whenever I like. I can further do different things in here to your data. And again, you got to remember this. While this is GP data, this could be any type of data. This allows me to do the same types of things to it. So if I wanted to, for example, if I wanted to see the invoices by customer, I can do drag and drop, and now I have grouping on this, and I have subtotaling. These are some nice little things that, again, I don't have to do anything for, and I get all of that right inside this one window. So if we expand it out, I can see here's all of the invoices for air and fits. So these are some cool things that we can do right inside of here. And again, I could resave that favorite if I wanted to have that filter in there. Sorry, I didn't put a filter on. I was going to talk about filters. So let's say we actually only wanted to see maybe something coming from our warehouse, right? Where and this may not necessarily make sense in a real world scenario, but we're going to say that we're our ship to address code. We're going to say where it equals warehouse. And maybe, this would be like an inventory location or something like that. That might make a little more sense. But now it's going to give me, all of the orders that have met that. So I can further filter that down and get rid of those other pieces of data. Now I think we still have, we still have 108 transactions from 635 is what there was earlier. So now we have 108 that are using primary ship to address code as warehouse. So that's how easy it is to add filters. And I think a key point to this is you can add as many as you like, right? With a standard GP smart list, we only got four filters inside of there. And now you can just keep on adding as many as you want. We can just hit plus, and you'll see that it gives you access to all of the fields on that list. So I'll just remove that for now. And again, I can hit save changes, and now I have those filters inside of there. One other thing, the grouping is kind of cool, is I can collapse everything, right? So if I wanted to, I now have, each group, and I can see how many, my dollar amounts for each of these specific customers, since that's what we're grouping on. So some really cool things inside of here. Again, if I wanted to also search for, maybe some specific amounts, for example, so I could search for Well, let's do this. Let's search for like maybe a specific order number. So if I'm searching for invoice 2030, oops, you can see here we go. I have both an order and an invoice that have 2030, and now I'm able to just very quickly go through that data. So this is kind of the main interface. And each of these tabs, right, this one happens to be GP, I could quickly switch between different lists, right? So if I wanted to switch to a customer list, I could very quickly do this. Or if I wanted to switch to purchase orders, I can access any of those lists inside of here very, excuse me, very quickly. But then I hear from a lot of people going, okay, that's great. This gives me a similar interface. Looks like I can have as many tabs open as I want. I could have 5 tabs open for GP. I could have, additional ones maybe coming from e-commerce systems or help desk systems or maybe some custom system that we don't even know about. And how can I add those things? So if we go into where this gets set up, this is where some really fun things happen. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at this connector right here. We're going to start with the existing one that's configured. Here's my GP connector. You can have as many of them as you want. So we have some people that are combining a bunch of different GP instances, and they're able to combine companies across multiple things. But we can have as many groups as we like. So here's the default groups that we create for you, but you can add additional ones, right? If you had maybe a third-party product in there that did something very specific around banking or something like that, and it had 3 different lists you wanted, you can create your new list and put whatever you want underneath there. And these are what we call lists. So these, right now, you're getting all of the standard smart list ones, right? So any of those standard ones that have been just created from Microsoft, you're going to get those, but we can add new lists. And so this is what I love that we're adding for GP, is that we can add anything from extender, from any smart list builder lists. So you can see I have a bunch of smart list ones. I could just simply click on it. We also work with Designer. A lot of people are surprised to see that, but we know that there are a couple people that have actually attempted to use the Smart List Designer product, and so we are making those lists available too if you want to use them. And then again, if you just want to add SQL tables or views, you can do that, right? Like if we wanted to add, let's see, one of the views in here is like purchase orders. Or there we go, like inventory purchase receipts. This is actually one of those views, or purchase orders, or any number of these. These are all views that are inside of that system, and so we can add any of those as a list that I want, and it'll immediately become available. So that's how easy it is to add lists. But you can also add custom lists. This is where I think there's an incredible amount of power, because we can do things like compare 2 lists. So what does that mean? Well, with a comparison list, I might actually go and look into my CRM system and say, hey, give me a list that has everything that is the same, our accounts to customers. Or maybe only give me the differences, right, where it's not in one system. So we can do things like that. I can do things like joining in another list. So maybe I have, like, one of these lists is just invoices, and then I have another list that has the line items on the invoice. Well, maybe I need a few pieces of information from both. I can combine those lists and come up with just the fields that I want between those two. But you can go way further than this, because beyond just like GP data, I could actually pull in a list from an entirely different system, right? So if I wanted to see my e-commerce orders and match them up to my orders inside of GP, I could go out and use that list and bring it in. So if you had something like Shopify or WooCommerce or Magento or things like that, I could pull in and find that extra information that maybe only existed inside of the e-commerce system. You can also do merges. Now, merges are kind of like, for any SQL people on there, it's like a union statement. So it's saying, hey, give me everything from this list and also everything from this list. So we've seen people use this in a number of different ways. We have some people that may have a legacy system and they maybe have a bunch of customer details. It could be, invoices for the last 20 years or something like that. And they want to be able to see those things, but they also want to match it up against their GP invoices. Well, this is something that can be done. We can have one list that, pulls all of those things from two different sources, but now we have one list and we can search that customer and we can see that, okay, here we go. Here's an invoice from 2 years ago that is using, that maybe has some certain products or whatever. And so without necessarily moving it or migrating it between systems, we can do stuff like that to join those kinds of things. Um, Another thing, I guess we don't talk about this a whole lot, but we can actually we can do things like restrict the data in a list. So maybe we have a list that pulls all customers, but we only want to pull ones that aren't on hold or something like that. We can do that with a restriction. We can also summarize the data. So we could have a list of, again, maybe it's all the lines on the invoices, but I want to summarize it and just give me basically quantities for each product that's been sold. So I could summarize a list that way and just maybe only have 100 rows on my list, but now I have totals for each inventory item. So there's just some ideas on how you can do some really cool things like that. I mentioned other connectors though. So if we go back to the connector screen here, I clicked away from it. You can see I have a lot of different connectors set up inside of this system. So I have some GP ones, I have some other ERPs, I have some CRM systems, I have some marketing systems. So quite a few things like that. We can access all of those types of data as well. And here's how easy it is to add connectors. We just simply hit add connector, and then you'll see a bunch of them pop up. And so if you have any of these, you click on them and put in the connection details to get in there, right? Whatever credentials you have. But there's many other things that we may not have a dedicated connector for today. And you can actually hit this REST service. And if there is a web service or API that we can connect to, we can put in some of those details in here and pull back data from systems that we didn't know anything about. So it's very, very vast in what kind of data we can pull back. Okay, we spend a lot of time in this interface, but I want to take a step out of it for a second, and I want to bring you into GP, because I think for a lot of the people on this call today, we've lived and breathed in GP for years. Again, I've been doing GP for over 20 years, and I know that people love working inside of the system. And so what we can do inside of here is we can actually make any list that's available inside of PopDock. We can have it right inside this interface. So if I go to just my menu here and hit PopDock, what you'll see, and as soon as I pick a company, we're seeing some data, and in this case, it looks like it's pulling all of my customers as my default list. But I'm not stuck on that. I can pull GP data in here, right? So I have access. It's way faster than the smart lists that are in there today. We can do the things like the go-tos. We can have access to run those go-tos and have it open that account in here, whatever. All those things are in there. But we can also access data from other systems, right? So again, if I wanted to look at something coming from my my CRM system in this case, so maybe I just wanted to look at some contacts out there, it's now pulling that live data from a CRM system without leaving Dynamics GP. And I don't know if I picked the best list. How about this? I'm going to pull help desk tickets from, again, Zendesk is a very popular help desk system. So here we go. We're pulling all of the tickets that are available for our company. All those same things, right? The filters and everything, we have everything, but it has the same look and feel as other types of data inside of here. Okay, so that's certainly one thing we can do. And again, you now have access to any list that you choose to publish out here. So a lot of people will just, put all the GP lists that they have access to, and can be utilized that way. But there's something really cool, especially for my GP friends, is that we can actually attach information to any. I'm going to be careful with this. Any window or any form, and this could go across third-party products as well. But any of these inside of Dynamics GP, we can attach a POPDOC window to. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this. So again, Zendesk tickets, I could pull this up. I'm now pulling the Zendesk tickets for Aaron Fitz, right? So we're just pulling Aaron Fitz's Zendesk tickets. So it's another little window, but it's a different list. All it is just the tickets. I can have another list here, right? So this one is more like, it's more like a list I showed you before, a favorite, where I actually, oh, let me do that one more time here. I was moving it at the same time. I'll quit doing that. But what this allows me to do is pass in, like I said, those parameters. So now I'm pulling Aaron Fitz's invoices. So this is all of the, or not just invoices, it's pulling all of the sales documents only for Aaron Fitz, right? As opposed to before, it was pulling for all customers. Now I'm passing that in, and I can see the total right here. So this can be great without necessarily having to go to other screens. I'm able to see this data, whether it be GP data or whether it be entirely outside of the system, like Zendesk. Additionally, I can show something kind of cool here. I can pass in additional parameters. So not just the customer, which I am passing in, I can also pass in, for example, this field. So from this form, I'm passing in the address of the ship to, and now without having to click anywhere else, I'm able to see the data from that ship to address, right? So this is a little different. This type of widget allows me to basically create a single record. So now it's pulling just that one as opposed to all of the invoices or all of the Zendesk tickets. So those are some cool widgets. I'm going to show you though how easy it is to set up all these things I've done. It doesn't involve any coding on your end. It's really just a setup thing. So if we look at how we can set up these favorites, I'll just pull up an existing one. So like, for example, I'll pull up this Pat one is where we're passing in invoices. So what this does is it actually pulls all of your widgets that are available from PopDock in the account that you've logged into. And so these are all the widgets which you can publish as many as you like. But then it's saying where do you want to attach it, right? So a lot of you that have Extender or SmartList Builder might go, I recognize these windows. Sure, exactly. It's the same kind of thing where we're allowing you to place this data on any of those windows. So in this case, we're putting it on the customer window. We're able to choose a default size of that window. It can be resized, but this is what it will open as, a specific size. So it's great if you want to make it match the size of the window that you're opening. And then here's a really cool thing. In this one, we're passing in the customer. So we have a couple of parameters on that widget that says, hey, only show me the invoices that match that are for this customer. And so it takes that parameter name, those all automatically come in for you from PopDock, and then you just map it to whatever the field is on the window. So we pull all those fields on the GP window. So it's that easy to add those in. And you can see I have another parameter here. If I wanted to, I could put a second parameter that had the city as well. But in this case, I don't have anything mapped to that, so it's not gonna further restrict it. So I just wanted to show you that this is a very, very simple way that you can do this. You still have access to all your go-tos right inside of GP, and now you can actually access things like Zendesk, for example, and can do those things right from inside of this interface. So let me go back to PopDock for just 1 second here. We talked about widgets, so I want to show you again how easy it is to set up a widget in this case. And so let me go back and look at, if we look at this one that we have in here for Pat, for example, I can edit this and you'll see right now that we have a couple of, these are the options that we've put inside of there. So we can have different options on whether we allow filters to show or whether we change it to a chart versus a list. All those things you can control how you want it to be seen. Here's where you add parameters. So you can see I have 2 parameters for this widget. And so we're able to, in this case, just because it's not required, we can just pass in 1 if we want. And then I guess the other piece that's kind of important with these widgets is that basically if you wanted to put this in a different application besides GP, you certainly could. And it's as easy as copying this or using the iframe. But this is what we're using behind the scenes ultimately for doing this. Now, one other little thing, this is called a favorite widget. You'll see that there's 3 different types. So a favorite widget is allowing me to take any list or a favorite that I've saved, right? So we saved a favorite earlier called GP demo. I could make just that list with all my restrictions, everything available. The application allows me to publish more than 1 list. So I could say, hey, give me 3 lists from GP, give me 5 lists from CRM, give me 2 lists from my e-commerce system, give me 2 different Zendesk, my help desk. And so I could have all of those things right inside of GP and never have to leave and have access to it. And then the single record I showed you, right, it's just basically going to give you 1 record as opposed to, all the records. So this might be useful for, I showed you like a shipping address information, but maybe it's something on an invoice. Maybe it's seeing just the last status of a shipment, right? Going out to UPS and then showing that it's been shipped or not shipped, right? That it's still in transit. So maybe it's just simply that, or maybe it's seeing some credit card details, right? That their credit card is active and the expiration date is, set to 2 years from now. So you can do those kinds of things if you just want to see one little piece of information and add it anywhere inside of GP. So if you kind of think of it a little bit for anybody that's familiar with Extender, this is Extender for external data, right? Because I can now have a little window that has just the data that I want without necessarily needing to move it inside of GP. So there's just a very quick overview of what you can do in PopDock, and specifically some of the really cool things for GP. I think what you're going to find is that there are a lot of people that smart lists were a fantastic idea, but now this is evolving smart lists to that next level, right? Giving us much faster, still giving us access to go back to any of the windows with all the actions that you have in there from a smart list that's a standard or one built in smart list builder. You're going to have access to all those things. So I think that's where the power of this is, again, and then bringing in data from other systems. So thank you for your time today. I'm going to show you just a couple more slides just so you have some information to go away with today. There are 4 different pricing levels for this. So at the base, you're paying per user, right? So how many ever users you want to have access for PopDock, you're paying $19 a user a month. Then it goes into how you are using this tool. So if you need to do some of those customizations, then you're into the standard plan and you get 1 widget. If you need to have more than 1 widget, then now you move up into the professional plan. If you need to really get into some of our API, or we have some BI exports into Tableau and Power BI, or getting into we talked about it briefly, but being able to schedule those reports to go out. This is something that we can do, and you're going to be in the premium plan. So again, you just pay whatever the base of that plan is plus the number of users that you have access to this. So it doesn't necessarily need to match your Dynamics GP users. This would be very specifically for how many people you want to have access to PopDock. Okay, so I'm going to answer any questions that we have here. Here's my details for anybody that wants to look at this further. But let me go and look at any other questions. Okay, one is asking, will this work with all the third-party products in GP? Yeah, basically, there's a couple levels there, right? If it was built in as a dexterity-based product, then certainly all those tables and everything will be there. And again, if you have just standard want to access those tables through SQL or views, we can do that. If you have built it via SmartList Builder or even the SmartList Designer, we've added support for that. So it will bring in all of those things. So if you have data in that database, then you are able to bring it into the PopDock interface and show it to anybody. So I think for a lot of people that will make some of those reports a lot easier. Okay. Let's see. Somebody's asking if it will work with Salesforce data. Yep. Um, I actually did show a widget on that earlier today, but we can do one of two things, right? We can take Salesforce data and we could show it inside of GP, like in that widget I showed you before, or we could actually we could flip it around. We could inside of Salesforce, if you wanted to see maybe the GP invoices for that account, or maybe inventory levels, or maybe the aging buckets, those kinds of things, we can make that GP data accessible right inside of one of those widgets in the Salesforce interface, if that's where your people work. Yep, good question. Okay, I don't see any other questions. You have my contact information if you have questions in the future, but thank you for your time today, and I hope you can see that this is a great solution for Dynamics GP. Thank you.